Welcome back to our third annual DirtFish Women in Motorsport Summit. This year was our biggest one yet, and we're joined by incredible women from all around the world, all converging to share their experience, advice, and their stories. We had the privilege to talk to these three amazing women that come from various walks of life in the motorsport world, who spoke to us in depth about breaking barriers and making history as a woman in motorsport. First up, we have Michele Abbate, an American pro racer. She began competing in U.S. Touring Car Championship with GRR Racing and became the first woman to race full-time in the 2022 TA2 National Championship. Next, we have Jndia Erbacher, Monster Energy athlete, one of the world's best drag racers, and somebody who goes from 0 to 60 miles per hour in less than a second. Truly an inspiration in the world, and overall has some incredible stories of her journey as a top fuel drag racer. On the far end, we have Vanessa Ruck, also known as the Girl on a Bike. Vanessa overcame life-altering injuries from a car accident to become a motorcycle racer, adventurer, and rally car driver, embodying resilience and inspiration.
Hello. First of all, thank you guys all so much for being here. This is such a cool event to be a part of. And as Josie mentioned, I own GRR Racing, which is it's a motorsports marketing company, so I can write off my bills for racing. But all in all, initially I was introduced into racing by watching my brother race. And my brother grew up racing go-karts. And I always wanted to race, but I wasn't really given the opportunity just because he was so successful. And so I kind of got into it through autocross. So I don't know if any of you guys know what that is, but it's like a time trial in autocross. I did that for I think about 7 years, and then just worked my way up the ladder into club racing, and then now I'm racing professionally in the Trans Am series in the TA2 category, which is very, very close to my heart. I love Trans Am racing. It's like a NASCAR, pretty much, 2-chassis V8 build, composite body, about 520 horsepower, 2,800 pounds. And so, it's very raw. There's no driver aids. So I got my start kind of from autocross, working my way up, and built my brand GRR Racing to help fuel my motivation to continue and make it into my livelihood, pretty much. So that's kind of my story.
So my name is Jndia. I'm from Switzerland. So how did I get into racing? Basically, it's completely different. I grew up with a family of petrol heads. So my dad has been racing since 35 years. So my first race was when I was 3 weeks old. So my parents took me with them all the time. I was just growing up at the racetrack. My dad is having a garage where he builds bikes, custom bikes, and Porsche. So it's kind of like my free time was always spent in between engines. Fun fact, I wasn't very interested in cars for a long, long time. So I was doing horse riding, show jumping, until I was 18. And then my dad came kind of to the point where he said, I'm getting old, my bones are going to hurt after the races, so I'm not very much into racing anymore. I love racing, but the pain is just too much and all the work and stuff. So I was kind of like, what's happening with the racing family then? So all the team members, which are good friends of mine, which know me since a baby. So I was kind of like saying, okay, let's try it. Let me sit in the car and just have a few runs. And well, as you see today, I got addicted immediately after hitting the throttle of these cars, and the rest is just in the making. So it's kind of a family thing for me, and working on stepping into my father's huge footsteps, as he is a 6-time European champion. So big footsteps to follow, but I think we're on a good way.
Okay, so my background is very different again, which is one of the things I love about motorsport. So many of us come into it in different ways, and really I had nothing to do with anything to do with wheels for a really long time in my life. I was an account director in marketing. I had a normal 9 till 5, which was actually more like 60 plus hours a week in an office as an account director. And in 2014 I got hit by a car while cycling on my way home from work, and life changed very dramatically in a moment. And through my recovery, which has led me to live and manage with chronic pain, I've got a reconstructed right shoulder and right hip. I had 7 surgeries over 7 years. I discovered motorbikes, and There's quite a long story about it, but the short story is that when you get into something like motorsports, no one warns you that they breed. So you get your first motorbike, or your first car, and then suddenly you need like 2, and then 3. They're kind of like the little black dresses, right? They're all very different. And so my journey into motorcycles started. It started with a Harley Davidson Cruiser. It was like a sofa with an engine for my body then. I wasn't in a great way. And over the years of a sort of a roller coaster of recovery, it escalated. I turned to off-road, and for anyone here who takes a car off-road, you'll appreciate how dynamic it is. Sometimes it's not necessarily about just going in a straight line in total control. It's about constantly correcting and fighting the stones and the rubble and the ruts, and you're constantly reading it. And yeah, sure enough, I got addicted to that. And over the last 2 years, I started racing, and I've now done some of the toughest off-road endurance rallies out there, really. So I just did the Africa Eco Race in January, which is the original Dakar route, 6,000 kilometres over 13 days, and became the first British female to ever finish. So I was very proud of that. And so through the motorbike world, the motorsports industries are quite connected, and so the opportunity to get into a car came around. And going back to sort of one of the key parts of the questions, like how do you build a business out of it? For me, following my accident, honestly, I was in a really bad place mentally. My mental health was in a bad way. My body was in a bad way. Life as I knew it was gone. And I started my Instagram account, just initially sharing pictures of how cool I used to be. You know, I could kite surf and snowboard and do all this fun stuff, and I was a broken mess. So when I ran out of pictures, I was like, what do I do now? And I thought, well, why don't I be real and share what I'm going through? And I suppose the fact that I had a career in marketing before really helped, because when I got my Instagram account, I obviously got the Facebook and the URL, and so I sort of cornered the girl on a bike. And it's really just grown and escalated. And my tip for how I've sort of built my brand as the girl on a bike, I think, is through storytelling, but it's not about me. Like, my biggest mission in everything I do is to try and help inspire other people to get up and do something. Whether it's trying to do couch to 5K, getting up and mowing the lawns, calling that friend that you haven't spoken to that you've missed, like anything, getting on a motorbike, getting in a rally car, you see where we're going. But trying to encourage other people to do things, and that's kind of how I've tried to build my platform of what I do, to try and give to the world. Because I often think, especially with social media, it can be so toxic and shiny and perfect and amazing, and it's like, I'm really sorry, but life isn't shiny, perfect, amazing. So by trying to share all the realities of it and inspire other people to get up, when I then speak to sponsors, one of the best ways to, I don't know, an easy example, how do you sell a motorcycle jacket? You don't tell people to buy the jacket, you inspire them to go on an adventure, and they're going to need a jacket to go on the adventure, right? Yeah.
These are very different forms of motorsport, right? Vanessa's off in the middle of literally the middle of nowhere in a desert somewhere with nothing but a bike. You're hitting 60-mile-per-hour speeds in under a second. I mean, the physicality of these sports, of the Trans Am cars, it's just, rally is rugged, and rally when Michele drove it was even more wild, I would argue. But tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about the intensity of your form of motorsport.
Well, whenever answering a question like that, I always say we drive fire-breathing race cars. Like, they are blowing flames out the pipes, much like your car does. But we also turn. But you have like 10 times the amount of horsepower I have. So anyway, this isn't a battle, but no. I feel like the road racing that I do, obviously we're on a circuit course, or I guess as a lot of you might call it, tarmac. And my class has typically over 40 cars in it, so it's all men right now. I'm the only female in the world racing in TA2, which I can't wait till I don't have to say that anymore. Thank you. But so I just feel like my platform of TA2 racing is really awesome, and it encompasses that V8 power. It encompasses the sounds of the V8 motor. We don't have, like I was saying, no traction control, no power assist in the vehicle, so it's all very raw driving. We're on a bias-ply slick tire. And we have an H pattern. It's sequential, but it's H pattern, so you don't have to use the clutch when you're shifting, and it's just one of the most raw forms of road racing, in my opinion. So that's my take on Trans Am. I could talk forever about it.
So yeah, I mean, drag racing, it's something completely different. We just go straight, I know, but we go pretty fast. Let's name some key facts about the Top Fuel car that I drive. So it might be the best impression to give you guys for what intensity it has. So as Josie already said, like from 0 to 60 miles per hour, we are probably 0.6 seconds. We drive with nitromethane, which is liquid explosive to explode buildings when you want to tear them down. And when I hit the throttle, I have plus 6 G forces on my chest, and within 3.8 seconds, I fall into minus 4 G forces. So it's a huge impression that you have on your body that you have to go through. But next to all this power that these cars have, they are so sensitive when it comes down to get them down the track and to be the fastest one. Like a lot of stuff that is deciding over winning or losing a round is the clutch. So we play with micrograms on the clutch to hit it in the right second, not even second, millisecond, to hit the next floater in and stuff. So it's like they are beasts, these cars. They are so dangerous. I mean, this car can kill you within a second without even thinking about it, like what's happening. So you can be gone. But they are so sensitive. They are so soft, and like all the team around, like I have 10 guys working with me since ages, and we're all doing this in our free time as a passion. So we spend our holidays at the racetrack, and I think this is the other really big impact drag racing has. It's kind of the roots of racing in my eyes. It's like where it all started back in the days where all the street illegal races started from light to light, where you just wanted to test your car, and all of the racing started to get to a point from there. So I think like drag racing has a huge impact, not even in the power that it has, but also in the surrounding.
So, India, something you mentioned to me yesterday blew my mind about drag racing. Can I just jump in with a story that you told me where you didn't have your seat for a race? Because you say she goes to 0 to 60 in under a second. You think that's fast. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, the fastest motorbike I've ever ridden was 2.6 seconds. And that was like a legal high of your internal organs trying to evacuate your body. But say about your seat, because that to me made my brain be able to, you're badass.
Yeah, so last year I went to the first race, and it's always getting busy when you load the trailer. So unfortunately I forgot my own seat, so I had to take my dad's seat, which was obviously way too big for me. But when you're at the race, you don't stay there and say, I'm not going to race. No, you sit inside the car. And so, unfortunately, I broke my back during qualification rounds due to the acceleration. And I kind of felt it. I didn't mention this yesterday, but I kind of felt it during my last qualification round. But I was number 1 qualifier. So on Sunday, I woke up with back pain and was like, something is wrong. It's not feeling as it should. So I went into the car again, and we won the first round, so I openly drove the second round, and then we went to the final, so I drove the final. I lost the final, but after this I couldn't get out of my car. So it was basically when I broke my back due to the acceleration of hitting that throttle. Yeah, so...
Told you, total badass. Mind-blowing. My motorbike has got nowhere near the power of any of this lot. It's pretty useless, really. It's like a dead elephant. It doesn't even stand up on its own. And I'll go off hundreds of kilometers into the desert on my own, carrying my own water and food and emergency supplies, flares, blankets, all of that kind of stuff, which I've unfortunately had to use. I've had a night in a sand dunes with a campfire, and the boogeyman Sandman's real. But I think the easiest way to sort of show some of the extremes of the sort of rallying that I'm doing is like the typical day in the desert. I'm burning 6,000 to 8,000 calories. My longest day on a rally bike is 13 and a half hours. Typical day for me is sort of 8 or so hours, and it's physical. Like, as I said, my bike doesn't even stand up on its own. You're fighting it through pretty tough terrain. If you've tried walking in deep sand, it's harder than walking on concrete. Try running on it, try riding a bicycle on it. Then, it's not just you've got an engine and it does it for you. It's really difficult. And the sort of races I do, unfortunately, most of them, someone won't come home from them. They're pretty dangerous, but they're really fun. And you should all want to get on a motorbike and go do them, or get in a car. Getting into a car, I think the biggest thing that blew my mind getting into a car from a motorbike is on a motorbike you're really free, you're fluid, you're using your body weight to control the bike, to lean, to move, to corner. And then you get in a car and you get strapped into the seat, which hopefully fits you. 5-point harness, your neck strapped to your shoulders, you've got a helmet on. You can basically move your ankle and your arms. And I don't think anyone really prepared me for quite how intense that feeling is when you're then going into corners with a guy sat next to you telling you that you should go faster because he knows that it's not really that big a corner. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. They said earlier it's about meeting people, networking. So I was in the bivouac. All stories start with that, right? I was in the bivouac in Africa. Bivouac's like the paddock area in a desert race. So this was my second desert race 2 and a bit years ago. It was Rally du Maroc, which is one of the Dakar qualifying rallies. And it was my first time in one of these really big bivouacs. You've got those like sexy ass trucks, you've got the cars, the buggies, the side-by-sides, the motorbikes. There's basically vehicle porn everywhere. And I was just wandering around, just dribbling. I met this guy. He seemed really cool. We were chatting away. He was there as a privateer supporting a car, and it was a really great chat. Gave him my phone number, not because I wanted to do anything, husband, just because he seemed like a cool person to know and meet. And anyway, we're in the middle of this conversation and a bowler wildcat drives past. Click, Vanessa goes into 3-year-old child excitement about this bowler, like the V8. And I basically just completely checked out of the conversation, ignored him, left it, and was like over this bowler wildcat. Just to put it into context, I had bowler wildcat wallpaper from posters as a 14-year-old. So like this was my dream car driving past me. Anyway, I carried on, the rally went by, and about a year later I get this phone call, and it's like, hey, it's Dave. I met you in the bivouac, and I didn't give anyone else my number, so I was like, oh my goodness, I know who you are. I am so sorry, I was so rude to you. How are you doing? And it turns out he was head of motorsports at Bowler. Kind of the right person to be really rude to, basically turning into a child over the car. And he sort of then started following my journey and story and was like, what do you reckon's come and doing an event in one of our new Bowler Defender rally cars? So it's been bought out by Land Rover and they're running the new Defender 90 rally cars. And I obviously tried to bite his hands off via the phone, and the rest is kind of escalated from there. It's been an incredible journey, and now I've been in a rally car. But my actual response to him on the phone was, how do you know I can even drive? Obviously, I've got my driving license and stuff. And his response was, you can ride a motorcycle in the desert on your own, off-road, whilst reading a piece of paper which is largely French abbreviations, compass bearings, and symbols to navigate all yourself. I think you can get in a rally car. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And yeah, I'm now doing the European rounds this year. So I did the UK rounds. The whole thing with Bowler is that they've made a production rally car, and anybody can effectively buy a rally car and go and learn from the team. So they took me from never having got in a rally car, doing my bars test, which is the license you need in the UK to race, through to driving, building my confidence, getting me working with a navigator, to the point where I managed to get some podiums even. And it was a really incredible way for me to start into motorsports because I was able to learn from their experience.
So speaking of doing things yourself, Michele, a massive part of your story is the fact that your career you've built from the ground up. I don't want to say entirely on your own, because of course you found support, but you found that support. You went out and you really built your brand and your career and everything up on your own. I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite questions because it's something I feel like a lot of people in this room can relate to. You know, you want to go do this racing, whatever it may be, and you just feel like, well, I don't have all the stuff to go do it, and I don't, like, it feels almost impossible to do it. And that's how it kind of felt for me, but I was really close to it because I had my brother to watch, but I didn't have a car, I didn't have a truck, I didn't have a trailer, I didn't have jack stand, you know, I didn't have all that stuff that you needed. And with my passion for the sport, I was able to kind of grow up around it, but not doing it. And what I ended up doing is, of course, I started using my daily driver to do the autocross, you know, then I'm doing track days, and then my dad's like, you can't do that, you don't have a roll cage. And I'm like, oh, like totally ignoring the safety side of the sport. And, but with that, with how all of our panelists have said, you know, you go to these events and you talk to people and you try to see, like, how did they get to where they were going and what paths did they take, you know, and I've had a lot of people help me, you know, and I'm very, very grateful for my husband. We met in high school and I was just autocrossing when we met, so he's been part of my journey this entire time. I absolutely wouldn't be here without his support because he always made me feel like I could do anything. Like he like if I doubted myself, he's like, you could definitely do that. You know what I mean? And so I think the message I would like to share with those of you that feel that way, like, well, how do I get there and how do I do it? You literally just kind of find a way, you know, and whether that's through the people you meet or going to events or like I walked up to Kurt Crawford of Crawford Performance and I was like, do you have a race car I could drive? You know, and it was like the stupidest question you could probably ask someone like that, but like that's where I was at. I really wanted to go to Subi Fest. I loved Subarus at the time, and like he was like, well, actually, yeah, I might. And I was like, wait, what? Like I was like, holy crap, you know, this was back in like 06 or 07. And so really believe in yourself, you know, and it's so cliche, and all the feedback we're trying to give you guys seems very cliche and very basic, but truthfully, if you really, really want to do something, you have the passion, you don't even know if you can do it, like, keep trying. People will see that, and, like, just try to lean on people that you look up to. You know, I really looked up to my brother. He was just the form of natural talent. My brother was a phenomenal race car driver, and it was just like, oh, I always knew, like, well, I could do it. If he can do it, I could do it. You know what I mean? And the fact that my brother didn't like go to a racing school, he never developed his skills that way, kind of showed me that, you know, you can do it just on talent, but then I had to learn how to do it without the support. And so I think the big takeaway is just don't give up on yourself and just keep trying. And, you know, it's really easy to make excuses like, oh, I can't do it, I don't have this or that, but find people that might help you or brands that resonate with you. And that's a whole other area that we could talk about, sponsorship. But through my career and my experiences with racing, it's just being genuine, being yourself and believing in yourself and just kind of taking a chance on yourself. The last thing I want to add to that is the highest ranks of racing I've been to is the NASCAR Truck Series. And my parents are probably watching right now. And when I told them I wanted to do the Truck Series race at COTA, they're like, you can't do that. Like, that's huge. You know, all they do is wreck. And like, it was kind of a no, but that's kind of been my fight my whole career, is just kind of fighting through the no's and finding the yeses and working your way through it. And it's just a matter of like staying focused on your goal. I mean, make a vision board. It sounds stupid, but I did it. I saw like, I want to get this license and I want to do this race. And so just stay true to yourself, be genuine and believe in yourself, because we'll all say it. If you think you can do it, you can do it. It's just getting there. But now that I'm 35, I'm not 29 like everybody else. But no, in my experience, honestly, just being truthful about what you want to do and how much it costs and the value you can bring and all of those things it's what people will see. Because when I was younger, I thought I had to speak a certain way. I thought I had to say, you know, certain things, and I had to be somebody else, and I felt very like under pressure, and like I wouldn't really be able to stand up here and talk to people because I wouldn't know what to say. And it's really just share who you are, share your story, share your passions, and just be very genuine. Pretty much every sponsor you see on my race car, they're like family to me because I use their product and I believe in it. And that's something that's super important to my race program as well, is just being authentic and actually like supporting those companies. But there's also other ways to do it too. You know, if Tide was like, hey, we'll give you $2 million to go race, okay, I'll figure out how to use Tide. But you know, but in a general speaking, I've only made it so far in my career, and I think it's because of being genuine and a good person and just being truthful to what I want to do.
And I think everyone in the room who has been in motorsport or in any realm where they've really had to push and advocate for themselves, we've all gotten a lot of no's, right? Just like you just mentioned. And Jndia, when you first wanted to get into the car, I think, what did your dad say?
Well, basically, my dad asked me if I'm stupid. So, no, he definitely didn't want me to race. Luckily, I'm very stubborn, so I kind of like make my way around my dad. So I got a good friend of the family who always said, like, you know, you're the only child he has. So what's happening with racing and stuff? So same thoughts that I had. And so I just went to him and said, like, hey, so I need $8,000 for my license for the first one. You said you will support me if I want to start, so what's the deal? So, yeah, he basically said, let's do it. So I just looked for all the programs and stuff, the licensing, and I went to my dad and said, so there are two chances. Either I'm doing it by myself, or you're part of it. And then he said, like, well, he wasn't very happy, to be honest. He was very angry and very mad at me for like 2 or 3 weeks. But after that, he came and he said, like, let's do it together in a serious way. Let's get the knowledge that I have. Let me try to help you as good as I can. Do it in a safe way, not just humbling for a win, just stepping in there and thinking like, yeah, I'm the biggest. I'm the one who's going to rock the world and stuff, because that's not racing. You will fall down very, very, very many times. I think all of us can talk about this. So, yeah, basically he had no chance then saying, okay. So my mama is basically, she stood with a knife behind him and told him, like, if my daughter isn't coming back home alive, you will be the next one missing. So, yeah, so as I said, my parents haven't been very happy about it, even if I was growing up in a racing family, but now they are supporting me as much as they can. So, yeah, it changed.
I think trying to build credibility. If someone says, oh, you've got no place to do anything on mechanics, then how can I increase my mechanical skills to the point that I can stand there credibly and have a conversation where they're like, oh, okay, she is credible in that. And I think a key thing with that is that you don't suddenly do the Africa Eco race in a day. It's always progressive. Like our comfort zones, fear. I remember, I started off-road riding 7.5 years ago, and I've had 4 hip surgeries in that time. And I can still remember when a curb terrified me. I didn't just like riding my motorbike down a curb. And now I will go over a log or up a hill climb. I've done Rebel Romaniacs. But I didn't just suddenly go to that. You've kind of got to move your comfort zone and push it. And in doing that for me, that helped me build the credibility with the people that were the no's. But then I also tried to push away the people that weren't the ones that were going to believe in me. You want to try and surround yourself with people that say yes when you come up with those crazy ideas, like going and doing the original Dakar. There's a lot of people that didn't believe that was going to be possible. Like, the average racer that I'm going against in that race was pretty much twice my size. I'm 60 kilos, and there were 100, 120 kilo guys on the same bike, doing the same distance, carrying the same kit. So statistically, I probably didn't have the same odds. And I remember having an article written about me just before I did the race, when I announced I was doing it, and it literally said against the odds, Vanessa's entering, and you're like, thanks. But my way to kind of counter those no's or disbeliefs is to try and work even harder and prove them wrong. Use it as a fuel to fight and go harder. And you don't think I'm fit enough, then I'll do more fitness. You don't think I'm strong enough, then I'll eat better nutrition. You don't think I've got the right kit, then I'll find out how to get the right kit, build the right team. And we were talking about foundations earlier, but for me in the desert, yes, I've got to go off and do the 600 kilometers on my own out there. But when I come into the bivouac, my mechanic and my support team are the ones that are going to help keep me going, keep me sane, look after me, wipe my tears, definitely tears in the desert, and help me get back on the bike the next day. So it's all of that surrounding. I think I've waffled and ping pong balled away from the question, but I think building on your credibility. Parents can be very nervous and scared, especially when you're doing races. And me and my husband eat really healthily. He eats more pizza while I'm racing than he does like in our whole year from just like nervous eating, watching a dot on a map. And when the dot doesn't move, is it a glitch? Or, I mean, it could be anything. I've been pulled out in a helicopter before. And so get the people around you that say yes to the crazy ideas and build your credibility. Build it. It doesn't happen in a day. If you want it, fight every day, every month until you make it happen.
I'd like to shift a little bit. Last year, a great member of the audience last year asked the panelists how you deal with imposter syndrome. And that's a really good question, I think. And out of all of the feedback that I got from the panel last year, the answers to that question were some of the ones that hit hardest for our visitors. So tell us a little bit about how you deal with it, and a really prideful moment maybe where you did.
So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So what do you mean by imposter syndrome?
Let me define imposter syndrome. No, it's okay.
I wasn't here last year, so.
Yeah, come on, Michele. Imposter syndrome is basically where that little voice in your head convinces you that you're not worthy of being in a space. So I have imposter syndrome right now because it's crazy for me to be at the front of this room. You know, that's something that I have to remind myself I'm worthy of. I'm worthy of being in a space. But it's really, really easy as women, as people, as maybe folks that are underrepresented in a community to, it's really easy to fall into the pattern of, do I deserve to be here?
Yeah, so I'd be lying if I said I never experienced that. It definitely happens often, and the quickest, easiest answer is fake it till you make it. Because that has got me into championships so much more than just like hopes and dreams and trying to think the right thing. I'll never forget when I first started racing in a series called the United States Touring Car Championship Series. They had some rules that you had to follow, and it was the first time I ever was in a racing series where they like said you had to have like racing polos and you had to look a certain way, and like I was like, wow, it's gonna cost me a lot of money to like get shirts and this and that, but like we ended up branding our whole race program because of the rules. And then I'm looking and I'm like, wow, we look really good. Like we look like a real race team, you know what I mean? And it was like kind of eye-opening because I was like, nobody knows who GUR Racing is. Nobody knows, it's just me and my husband. Like I had somebody of stature come to me and they're like, who runs your entire company? And I was like, I do. My husband and I. And so with, I guess, imposter syndrome, it's almost just almost faking yourself out and like trying to redial in and say, okay, you know what? I've made it this far. Maybe look back at where you started. And I can tell you I started from pretty much nothing. And where you are today. And I still do that because it's like, sometimes you take for granted all the opportunities you have had and the challenges you have overcome, and it's really easy to look at maybe someone else and say like, oh wow, like they're just killing it and they're doing way better than me, and it's like everybody has their own story. And so I think it's really important to kind of ground yourself and don't discount any of your achievements, small or big, even if it's getting out of bed every day. That's how you start your day. You gotta start and you gotta go with each step. And I think with racing, it's a lot more downs than ups usually, at least it has been for me, a very challenging sport to be in. But ultimately it comes down to your passion and your desire, and yeah, if you really want to be out there, you'll find a way. So just there'll be times where you doubt yourself, but ultimately you have to be the one to pull yourself out of it. And if you're lucky, you'll have others that will help you do that too.
So as great as it is to run in a family business, as hard as it can get to follow your father's footsteps, I think Oliver Solberg is also getting through this or went through this. So people are looking at you with big eyes because they say like, you're the daughter of him, you're Erbacher, you have to do this, you should be great, you should be doing this good. And there are moments where I just fail as a driver. honestly, where I'm just sitting inside my car at the top end. I'm thinking like, what was this? Like, what did she do? So these are the moments where I'm sometimes sitting here and thinking like, I should quit. I don't know why I'm doing this, because I will never be good enough to get to a point where I can steer my car through a point where it's very dangerous, because maybe I'm just like not having enough experience. And these are the moments where you struggle, not because of me, but because of my team. I'm feeling bad for my team because I know they put all the work in, like they are working like animals to run. And I'm just doing like one stupid small mistake, and it's just like poof, the win is gone. And yes, this is hard, but I have a great team, so they always build me up, and I'm not trying to show them, to be honest, because I know I have to be the leader. I have to show them, let's go through this. But they know me, so they can see it in my eyes what I'm thinking. So if they're watery and glittery, they know, oh, okay, it's not that good. Yeah, so they know me. And I think one of the greatest things that always keeps me up are the kids at the racetrack. I mean, I had one little guy walking to my pits in 7 o'clock last year, final round, walking to me, and I had a weekend. I had like 5 engines with me and 4 exploded, so I was just like, oh, it was so expensive, like, so dangerous. So on Sunday evening, he walked to my pits with his mama, and he asked me if he could have a head gasket of me. And I said, of course, sure, you can choose one. And then he asked me, like, which was your last one from the last run? And I said, this one. Yeah, because I stood behind your car. And I was like, oh, how did you get to the starting area? And he said, yeah, I started driving with Junior Dragster. I was like, this is awesome, great. And then he came and said, yeah, can I show you a picture? So he actually showed me a picture from back in 2016. He was just like this. And he was staying next to me, and he said, this was the moment where you said, if you believe in your dreams, you can make it. And this is why he started racing, and this is what keeps me going. I think, yeah, it's just like making an impact and giving back. We talked about it yesterday, like giving back to people. It's one of the things where you're just sitting here and thinking like, okay, something I do is right, so I'll keep going.
I genuinely believe that everybody gets imposter syndrome, or at least that's what I tell myself when I get it, like all the time. So please all nod and say we all get it. I think it's normal. And I think one of the things that I try to do when I'm getting it, which is frequent, is to try and remember that I've trained and I've prepared and I've worked my bottom off to get to where I am, and I have every right to be there as everybody else. I remember being in a race, it was Red Bull Romaniacs. There were about 600 guys and 6 women. And I remember being there on the start line in my helmet, and I actually started crying because I was just so overwhelmed that I was going to die. I wasn't ready for this race. So just a little bit of context. This is a hard enduro race in the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. I think it's 6 days, and the only way to describe the terrain is just disgusting. Like man-made obstacles that are designed to be crowd pleasers, which basically means fails and crashes, like mountains, river crossings, rock beds, and you're doing it on a motorcycle that weighs more than you while there are other people around, and apparently using their heads for like traction if they fall off in front of you is frowned on. So you have to try and go around them if they fall off. And I remember just being there thinking, I shouldn't be here, and freaking out. You know when you want the earth to like crack open and just swallow you up and take you away? And I just kind of had to sit there going, well, you're here now, aren't you, love? You've made some life choices, so you got to suck it up, buttercup. And in that point, it's looking back at your past achievements. You don't just appear on the start line of a race like this. You've kind of worked towards it, and remind yourself of all of the things that you've done up to that point, whether it was doing a course or another race or experience with a friend. All of those things that have happened in your past have got to you to the point of time that you're in right now. And if you weren't ready to be there, you wouldn't be there. And just own it, believe in yourself, and fight. And sitting there thinking about the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm not ready, is not going to help you fight. Focus on what it is that you've got to do, what is in your control, and go out and do it. Basically, use that imposter syndrome to fuel your power. I know I often do a lot of speaking, and people often say, like, don't you get really nervous going in front of a group of people? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I do. I'm a normal human as well. It's terrifying. Like, look at all the faces. You look very friendly, but some of you probably bite. And the way to kind of to utilize that nerve is to use it as your preparation. And so use those nerves as part of your toolkit before you go into it.
I would love to open it up to the audience now. If anybody has any questions. Is Nate in here with the handy microphone? There he is. Okay. Nate, we're going to have you sprint all the way up to the front here.
Let's go.
Run! That's an ally right there.
First of all, thank you. This is fantastic. My question is for all of you. It goes kind of back to the imposter syndrome. Do you remember the first time that you took your helmet off and somebody was completely shocked that it was a chick? Because I remember my first time, I was at Laguna Seca, and this girl was just amazed that some other woman could be driving, and she has since gotten into racing. But I'm wondering, do you guys remember the first time?
I do. Well, I'm not going to say it's the first time, but I'm going to say it's my favorite time. And actually, some of you may recognize the track, Pacific Raceways. I was doing a Majors Tour race, and it's actually on YouTube, and this was a long time ago. It was probably 2014 or 2015. And I had a hell of a race. I was in STU. I was racing against a Mustang, former GTU champion. Not going to name him. But he took me out 2 times in the race, and we were battling for the lead. Car count was low. I think there was maybe 5 cars, so essentially still a chance to win the race. And little did I know, there was a little bit of an audience there, which was pretty cool. But I came into the pits. I won the race, and the last lap I passed him, which was really, really cool. Probably one of my favorite races to this date. But I get out of the car, and my husband, he's my crew chief, my spotter, all of that. So he had been radioing with me, and this man and his son were there. And I didn't know about them, obviously, but I came in the pits, and I took my helmet off, and this boy maybe was 5 years old, and he's like, "Oh my God, Dad, it's a girl!" He was just blown away. And my cars are always, they're not very girly looking, and my car was OD green with a flag on the roof, and so not very feminine looking, I guess. And I was just kind of like, oh, that was cool. Didn't really think anything of it. And after the award ceremony, went back to the pit, and the little boy came with his dad, and this little boy was so impressive. He knew every car, every motor, his favorite race cars, and he was like, "Can I help you and your team?" And I was like, "Do you want to help us put stuff away?" Sure, And his name was Roman, and yeah, that was probably one of the coolest moments where I was acknowledged as a female. And what's really cool is I actually sponsor Roman to this day. He was one of the first for racing drivers. So, pretty cool story.
So I have kind of a bit of a different story. I went clubbing with a friend of mine. So a random guy came to me and asked me "Hey, what do you do in your free time and stuff?" And I usually don't say what I do. I just said, I'm into cars and stuff. And then he started talking to me about his BMW that he himself and blah, blah, blah. And I was saying, to my friend, hey, this is so cool. Yeah, it has 500 horsepower. That's so great. And I was saying, my friend was literally staying next to me, and she was so bored. She was I could see her eyes roll around the whole time. And then one time she just stood there and took me back and said, "Dude, she is driving 10,000 horsepower. So stop. You're annoying her. Can we please stop this conversation now? Because I want to spend my night with her, because we don't get to see each other very often, because she's a race car driver, so please stop." And he was like, "What? But you're a woman. You're with long blonde hair and high heels." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing this in my free time, yeah." So yeah, this was pretty this was a moment where I was saying that Yeah.
I guess on a motorbike it's a little bit harder to hide the fact that I'm a girl. You can kind of see my shape. If anything, I look more like a 14-year-old boy with a ponytail. So I feel like I don't have a sort of defining moment. I very often get sort of looked and judged by my cover. I'm small, I'm blonde, I've got ridiculously long natural eyelashes. They're not fake, and no, I can't take them off. And they don't affect my ability to ride a bike, by the way. But I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about being a girl is in the hard enduro scene, like in a race or in a training environment where you're falling off all the time, you're throwing your bike over rocks, flipping it up hills or whatever. And there are certain types of guys who are like, oh, the girl's fallen off. And they like freak out. And my husband always stood there if I'm riding with him, and he won't even bat an eyelid. There's no way he's coming over to help me. Like, he knows if I need help, I'll ask. And my friends all know that if I need help, I'll ask. But these other guys are like the knights in shining armor. They don't really know what to do with themselves, and they'll come over, and it's like, all right, you can pick my bike up. That saves me some energy. But I just find it hilarious how some guys just see the girl falling off, and it's like the end of the world, and it's like, we're all falling off. It's all right. It's okay.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been very inspiring to hear every single one of you. I have been training via simulator racing. I built my own simulator a couple years ago. I had a bad accident when I was younger, so it kind of took me away from the sport, and grew up around a mechanic working on my own car growing up. And as someone interested in potentially racing and getting sponsored, I know we're asking a lot about the positive things, about imposter syndrome, but what does it feel like when you're talking about your sponsors when you haven't had a few good seasons, or when you haven't been performing your best? Could you talk a little bit about what that's like and how to turn that around with those more business relationships?
Yeah, I think that goes back to being authentic. On my Instagram, I always share what my result is. I know a lot of people that I follow, especially women, if it's not a win or a top 5, they're not even saying, it's a great race, had a good weekend. And I think it's really important to share your journey and be truthful about it. And the truth is, you don't win every race. And, there are bad weekends where you blow up 4 motors or wreck, or have an incident, or that's a very real part of our sport. And I think that if your sponsors are solely focused on your results and you aren't in the capacity to deliver those results, it might not be the right sponsor. You know what I mean? I'm very thankful for my sponsors. They just want me to drive. You know what I mean? They just want me to follow my dream, and it's very hard to find true, authentic partners that want that. Because some might just want photos of you on the racetrack or and on the rally track or whatever. But it's very important to align yourself with partners that are believing in you for the right reasons. And if they're looking for wins and it's not something that you've been able to deliver, it's just a matter of having that conversation and being truthful and sharing, maybe the reasons behind that. Maybe, hey, you need to add a 0 to the check because I don't have the right equipment, you know what I mean? Or it's very relative, you know what I mean? And so I think that when it comes to partnerships and trying to deliver results that you may not be proud of, be proud of them because that's your story, and it's just like people want to see a champion, yes, but there's a journey to get there, just like we've all said, you've worked so hard to get to where you are, and it's just a matter of showing like, hey, yeah, I haven't won a TA2 race. I've been racing TA2 for 5 years, but for me, if I can get in the top 15 of a 40-50 car field, that's a win. If I can put my car in the trailer and it doesn't have corners torn off of it, sick. Like, that's perfect, So that's kind of my take on that. Just be true to yourself and don't be afraid to share your story. And if people aren't showing that they're failing, it's because they're probably failing in a really big way.
I think I have nothing to add here. It's basically just like, yeah, as you said, not looking for sponsors which pay you money, but looking for partners which want to make the journey with you and taking the learnings. That's, yeah.
I want to become a NASCAR racer and was wondering how to get into racing.
That is awesome. Number one, that is awesome. Number two, so obviously NASCAR handles a lot of circle track stuff and road course racing now, which is really cool. The best thing you can do is just look into the feeder series that would help you develop the talent that you need. So in your region, maybe look for a circle track or something where you can develop your skills in I don't know your age group, but like a Legends car is an amazing platform to start trying to understand the fundamentals of driving somewhat like a stock car. Being in a tube chassis car is going to help you develop those skills. It's just a matter of kind of understanding what you can reach in the local region, unless you have the ability to go somewhere else and maybe train offsite. There's plenty of schools out there for racing, but for me, I could never afford a racing school, so I had to learn kind of on my own and through my own path. But I think for you, if you can just kind of focus on in your general area what would be helpful to develop your skills, and just the more seat time you can get is great. Another thing is sim racing. If you have the ability to have a sim racing computer, I mean, the Cup guys are racing in simulators to get more practice. And so that will help you develop the talent of throttle control and rolling out of the throttle and getting through the corner with the momentum that you need. And actually sims are great because they'll show you when you're losing time, or hey, you charged the corner too hard. You need to brake a little earlier so you can get on the throttle sooner. All that stuff you can learn through sim racing. I'm a terrible sim racer, but I don't race with people. I race by myself on the sim because then I don't have to worry about everybody else. But the best thing you can do, and you can come find me later too so we could talk a little more one-on-one, but pretty much anything you can do to get in a car that's similar to that platform is what's going to help you get to that level. And it's very, the thing I hate about NASCAR is you almost have to live in North Carolina to be a NASCAR driver. And I'm not in the mood to move to North Carolina. So I don't know, I could make some more starts in NASCAR for sure. But yeah, if you'd like to talk together, I would be happy to try to help you.
Thank you so much.
I would just add one thing. Instead of saying you want to become a NASCAR driver, say you're going to be one. Yeah. And I look forward to doing that.
Don't be scared. Everything will come to the right time, and probably everything that happens for a reason. Because sometimes you're just staying there, and as always, most of the time, everything bad comes together in one moment. And then you just have to stay there and try to keep yourself up and push yourself and push yourself. And honestly, sometimes you don't have the energy anymore to push yourself. And this is where I'm just sitting at the point sometimes where I'm saying, okay, wait a minute. Like back in the time, there was always a reason why it happened. And when a door closes, another door opens. I know it sounds like just a saying, but it's the truth. And I think I would tell myself this, just keep what you're doing, believe in yourself, work as hard as you can for your dreams. And sometimes just let time do what it needs to be done. Because sometimes you can't change anything and you just have to wait, and sometimes there is a reason why.
So I would definitely double emphasize the believe in yourself part, because it's absolutely unreal what you can achieve when you believe in yourself. And a key thing to then focus on there is what's in your control. So often there's just all this noise, all this stuff going on that you can't do anything about. Focus it in on what you can actually do today, this week, this month towards that goal, and get up every day and do something towards it. And then when you do get up in the morning and you have no energy and you feel like your goals are completely unachievable or your body hurts, whatever it is, remember that that's normal. And we all have days where our dreams don't feel like they're going to come true. And it's on those days where the people that make their dreams come true keep going anyway. And find, even if it's 4 minutes in that day to do something, just chip away at it and just keep believing and focusing and go towards it.
I'll just add one little bit. With everything they said, the other side of that, if you're looking at racing at like a professional level, I wish someone would have told me understand your value. I think everything that I've led to this point is you don't really have a clear understanding of what your value is, and I always undersold myself, and it hurt me every single time. So I think that's a really important thing to take back, is just really genuinely evaluate kind of what you're doing and understand your value and just make conscious decisions as to if it really is worth the partnership you're trying to create, because sometimes it's just easier to buy the part than it is to try to sign a contract.
Sorry, it's me again. I have a little story to add here, and maybe one point, just doing the things that you really enjoy. The great women before talked about it, like living it and loving it. I was sitting once with my dad somewhere, and we had a glass of wine, red wine, so we got very like philosophic, and we talked about it, and he said, like, you know, if you're having an accident, a really bad one, it takes you about 10 to 15 minutes until the ambulance is at the accident and they have time to bring you to the hospital. So basically, when you're about to die, you're going through a movie. So this movie that's playing is full with scenes that happened in your life and made an impact on you. Even it made you cry, it made you happy. It was just a special person you saw, or like a conversation you had with someone. So you have to take care that this movie is as long as possible, that the ambulance gets the chance to bring you to the hospital and save your life. So this is basically what I'm always trying to do. If I'm doing something, I'm trying to get my purpose out of it. And I think this is something I wish I knew sooner, or like back in the day. Sometimes you can say no. It's okay. If you don't enjoy it, don't waste your time. Say no and just do the things that you want to do, because time is so precious. No one can give you back time.
Well, I think that is honestly all-encompassing of everything that we're trying to do here, right? The point of this entire initiative is not only to introduce you to some of the incredible women that are doing the damn thing, but also, you know, you hold inherent value. You're in this space for a reason. You're making the space better. You are worthy of being here. And that is, if there's one thing that you take away from the weekend, I hope it will be that.